welcome back
Hey,
to.
how you doing?
I'm doing all right. We are. I don't know what episode this is. 9, 10, something like that. We're working our way up there. At some point, I want to try and get weekly podcasts going. For now, we're doing our bi-weekly. This is post-Halloween, pre-Thanksgiving lull. So there's not a ton going on. So I figured you brought up the topic of you wanted to talk about um, us growing up.
Yeah,
Us, you versus me. We did one kind of similar, which was you versus me at 23, but I think that's a little different than you you growing up and then me growing up. Because me at 23 is completely different than me at 5. So um yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Let's go ahead. You go first because you have way more to um bring about because you have more life experience and more to talk about and
okay.
probably
So,
more.
yeah, the times were different when I grew up, naturally. I was born in 44, and we lived, my mother and father and myself, in Brooklyn, New York, which is one of the 5 boroughs of Brooklyn. And it was a wonderful time. I lived there till I was 12 years of age. And the reason why I say it was a wonderful time, I had great parents. And we lived in a apartment house that was attached with a big yard in the back. And it was like a double twin apartment house that was 3 floors. And it was like families living there, and everybody knew everybody because it wasn't gigantic, and people weren't transient. And
What?
where people weren't transient. They stayed there
Transient?
transient, yes.
I don't know the. Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it.
They lived there for a long time. Uh, their ages, they usually got there when like my parents were young, relatively. There were younger people there, younger parents there, and then eventually, everybody uh, probably saved up and bought a house. But what was great was mom and dad would allow me to walk to school, which people can't do today. It's too dangerous. And I'd stay in school and then come home, and go outside, and people would sit on the stoop, and we'd go and we'd play punch ball in the street.
The hell is punch ball?
Punch ball is you throw the ball up in the air and you hit it with your fist and you run the bases. So instead of using a bat, you use your hand and what is known as a Spalding pink ball. It was a hard
Oh,
ball.
like a super pinky.
Yeah. And
Oh,
superstar was a kid that could hit 2 sewers. There were sewers with, sewer tops in the street. And we'd have teams and play against one another. And we started out at a very early age. We played in the street, and we played in the gutter, and there was never a problem with getting hit by a car or getting kidnapped or violence. And it was just like a wonderful time. And like I said, I had wonderful parents, and um, I went to a great school, PS 221, and it was up to 6th grade. And after school, the kids stayed on their own volition. We had tournaments, basketball tournaments, baseball tournaments, all kinds of tournaments to keep us active till 5 o'clock. And if there was no tournaments run by teachers, we would do it. And then I would walk home, and like I said, walk home and not have to worry about anything until a certain point I did. And that's when we moved. And on the weekends, like I said, the houses were attached. The two giant apartment houses were attached, and we would see that my parents would be going out with a couple of other couples with the children, and all of us. We'd be going out for dinner and a movie. It was great. It was like having brothers and sisters, but not having brothers and sisters. And my dad, I remember we'd buy comic books, and then we'd put out we'd have a stand, and when we finished reading the comic books, we'd sell the comic books, and or trade the comic books. And we collected baseball cards, and we flipped baseball cards. God knows how many valuable baseball cards I lost in the flipping.
I was gonna say baseball cards, specifically card trading in general, right now is very, it's a hot topic, specifically with Pokemon, but like cards in general are very, very trendy in terms of trading and making money off of.
And one of the things we used to do, we'd go down into the bicycle room, which was in the basement of these double houses where everybody left old bikes and old wagons, that they had for their babies that were broken down. And we take the wheels and we make race carts and build them. And we had one very big hill, and we'd go down the hill, and we'd race, and hopefully at the end of the day, nobody got hurt too badly. Somebody always got hurt, but not too badly. So it was a wonderful time, and that was in Brooklyn.
And this was before or after the dinosaurs went extinct?
We had a couple of dinosaurs roaming, just a few. But like I said, it was my parents could be at work, or my mother was home, but parents didn't have to watch their children. All they had to do was basically say, I want you home for dinner at a certain time.
Yeah.
And that was till age 12. How did your age, how did you grow up in your early years?
Oh my God. Up until age 12. Jesus, you make me sound like, it sounds like an adult versus an actual child. The definition of a child has changed so much. God. I don't even think I had half of the autonomy that you had until I hit like high school. I don't even think I had half of what you had. No, I couldn't even get that till I was 15. Not to mention, obviously things have changed. So all right, let's back up. Elementary school was elementary school. We'd have recess, I'd play with friends, and then afterwards I'd go home. And I was just home. So if I was home, I'd be playing with whatever was in the house with Eleni, or just by myself. If I wanted to see friends, I had to schedule a play date, and it had to have been at someone's house, and my mother had to drive me, or the other child's mother had to drive them here, and it was an allotted time of 1 to 2 hours, and then and then some food, and then they'd go home, and then it'd be over. There was no punch ball, no such thing. You kick ball, you had baseball, you had dodgeball, but all that was played at recess. In school, there was no after school, like no kids stayed after school to play around. I think, oh no, actually, when I was in, I think Eleni used to, after school, kids used to go to the playground where we would have recess and play for a little while. Maybe it was a half hour or something. But yeah, no, we couldn't walk home because it was a 15-minute drive home. So that means to walk would have been ages. And it's on major roads, and this is a suburban neighborhood in Glen Rock, New Jersey, not New York. So there's no subways, and there's no neighborhoods, and there's no family building that you guys have with non-transient people. It was neighbors, and hopefully you were friends with your neighbors, which we were. We were friends with the neighbors next to us on, I think, both sides. And then I made a friend. It just so happened the kid whose backyard touched my backyard, I became friends with. And we had a little gap between the fences from my backyard to his backyard, and he had a hole. So he would climb through the hole and then shimmy his way through in between the fences and then end up on my side rather than having to go all the way around the block. And he'd just hang out. And, my mom would be on the deck and she'd call down and say, "Oh, you can stay over for a couple hours." And then his mom would say, "Hey, come back in a little while."
Peter, you have a light reflecting on you.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's fine. It's just the sun. I'm all right. It moves. As long as it's not in my eyeball, I'm good. Um, uh, uh, yeah. So, for those who are listening and not watching, yes, there's a massive reflective thing on my face. But yeah, no, I mean, that's about as open and free in terms of non-scheduling that I had, was like the neighbor who was in my backyard who could come over whenever he was available. And if I wanted to go bike riding, it had to be with an adult. If I wanted to go anywhere outside of the backyard, it had to be, or the front yard. Even the front yard was kind of like half okay. Yeah.
Very restrictive, huh?
Oh, extremely restrictive for whatever the purposes were, whether it's because they were my parents specifically, and that was how they wanted to raise us, or it was, I mean, the neighborhood we lived in wasn't a bad neighborhood. It wasn't known for anything. There wasn't anything crazy. I don't think there was anything nearby even that was sort of bad about the area. I think that's just how we were raised. Not to mention also, we had the emergence of like significant technology in video games that you did not have. Like when I started hitting, 10, 11, and 12, and, GameCube and Game Boy SP and, iPod shuffles, they all started coming out. And yeah, that was, and so, yeah, of course, then stuff really started to change. Because why the hell would I go outside and play punch ball when I can play Mickey Mouse on the Game Boy SP?
So basically, I was told go out in the fresh air, and I grew to be 5'6". You stayed in the house and watched and played with your technology and grew to be 6'7".
Yeah, well, and it makes sense. It makes sense because it's like Gollum. I grew to a grotesque size and elongated limbs like a creature in the darkness of a cave that has never seen sunlight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's when you really lay it out like that, obviously there's tons of nuances and things that like we are just not even going to attempt to get into in terms of your generations and my generations of like, yeah, there were significant laws and regulations that just weren't present. That is like significant reasons why kids your age were dying and getting kidnapped and having these issues. And like some of those issues are still prevalent today, even though we have laws to try and fix them.
Did you say kids my age and during my times were being kidnapped?
Yeah, there were.
No. It was relatively safe during.
That's what I'm saying. Relatively, there's always an anomaly. There's always like it's gonna happen.
You know why? Because like you had multiple parents on the block, and because everybody knew everybody, there were different parents watching over you. There was always somebody at the window or somebody sitting outside. And
that's fair. But I'm talking about like even just walking home, like, you know what I mean? You had to walk however many blocks home, wherever you were. And even if you were with friends, every once in a while, there had to have been, maybe not with you may not have experienced it, but at some point or another, there was moments and times where people probably got picked up. And so, yeah, but my point is like, oh my God, the crap that you guys were able to do. And creative wise, like as well. You said you guys were building little cars and crap like that to race. Uh,
Yeah.
hell, if I could do that, I don't know how the hell I could do. I don't know how to do that, and I can guarantee you, Alex doesn't know how to do that. Alex is my little brother. For those who are listening, he's 10. Um, Kid
Well,
loves Legos, and he can probably build pretty well, but I don't think he has the capabilities to build a functional vehicle out of bicycle wheels and leftover compost from a basement.
yeah, it was great. We used to get wood, axles, and wheels, and we used to make our own brakes, and we used to find the biggest hill going, and we used to race down the hills, and we'd crash, we'd crash or not crash, but it was really known as King of the Hill. You know, who was
Now,
King of
King of the Hills is a new type of game. They have a
Yes,
different type of game called King of the Hill now, which is interesting.
but we had a lot of freedom as long as we listened to our parents. Now, I was a good kid. There were some of my friends were not. Okay,
Yeah.
and I don't want to say that everything was lovely. I mean, I did get into fights, and but that was, you know, I had to sustain myself. Um, but that was also one of the reasons we moved because um, the neighborhood on the outskirts was getting a little bit dangerous. So at 12, I had to move, and we moved to Queens. But that's the next discussion. But not everything was beautiful, but it was beautiful when I look back at it, because, like I said, living in a double apartment house, we had many brothers and sisters, and like brothers and sisters sometimes don't get along. We didn't get along, but we played well together most of the time.
Right.
And, and the relationships we made, um, our parents' relationships, withstood time in most cases. Ours, because we were kids and everybody moved away, didn't, but it was nice. And the schools were safe, and the teachers were lovely. And we always found something creative to do outside. I mean, I don't remember, other than making up my own board games to play inside, I did not have any technology. Like you said, it was times of the dinosaurs.
Well, there's goods and bads to it all. I think there's a lot to say about it. I think there's also a huge difference between the fact that you grew up in Brooklyn and just New York area in general compared to someone like me who grew up in suburbs and then moved to a more remote place, which was arguably farmland, um, and is now back in a suburbia type neighborhood in my 20s now, and is soon going to move to the city. So, you grew up in a realm where you had the privilege, because it is a privilege, to have had a community that was able to trust children with various adults. I'm hell if I would trust anyone in this neighborhood with my brother. Great neighbors, nice people. Don't know if I
Mhm.
trust him with my brother. Um,
Yeah, too many drive-bys too. Not shootings. Too many people with cars that can pick up kids.
well, right, and that's also what's changed nowadays. But you know, you you were raised with a privilege of
More,
security. You
yeah,
had a level of security because you knew you had however many friends, 10, 15, that all lived in your building. And you knew that if you were walking with them to school or from school, that you were at least felt safe. Um, and that gave you confidence, and that gave you reasons to go out and hang out and be with people. Um, in a suburban area where I can't cross major roads at the age of 8, because there's crazy ass people going 95 on a 35. Um, Yeah, I'm not going to develop friendships and relationships like that. We're not, my parents aren't going to watch their kids because those kids live 20 minutes away. So,
And
you know,
you didn't have schoolyards by you where,
mm,
where, where you could go play stickball, punch ball, softball, football, two-hand touch,
by
all.
by where I live now, no. Where I used to live when I was 10 and so on, yeah, I did. Um,
How far away from your house?
not walkable by any means, not
Well,
walkable.
that's what I mean. I'd go 3 blocks away, 4 blocks away,
Well,
and
oh, well, yeah, and there's, I mean, now in the neighborhood I live, there's a small park area, but I'm also 23, so I'm not gonna be playing kickball with a bunch of 23
sure.
year
No, well, we're talking about our early years.
olds. No, I know. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
now that I have a field to play in, something like that, great. And that's also an interesting thing as well, is when I was not even 10, it was before that, when I moved. Um, when did I move? First to second grade? I want to say so third grade, I started in the new town. Um, Second grade was the last year. Whatever age second grade is, uh, that was the last time I was in Glen Rock living there. Um, yeah, so it's interesting because when we moved to the farmlands, it was still in New Jersey, obviously, but um, got a massive field, and you're like, great, you could play and could do things. Hell no. It was closest person was like a 30-minute drive, let alone walk. Uh, there was one kid who I somehow managed to make friends with, and he was happened to be my age, and he was just down the road. But even then, it was like a 10-minute bike ride for him. I wasn't allowed to bike ride to his house because they were country roads. There's no sidewalks. The road barely fits two cars. You have to put two wheels in the dirt just to get a car to pass each other. So if you put a bike on that road, absolutely not.
Uh,
Um,
you're talking about bikes. I had a Schwinn Black Phantom, which was a fantastic truck bike. Uh,
okay.
and I used to take that bike and drive and ride through all kinds of neighborhoods with my friends. I mean, it was so
Well, I
nice.
mean, well, and that's another thing as well. Like, you guys value the values that you guys had is so different because, like, I have no idea what the hell a Schwinn Black Phantom is. No one I know and no one I've ever spoken to has ever spoken about a bike being like, yeah, I had the so and so blue eagle. You know what I mean? Like back then, you guys had like bikes that were it was like cars for you guys. You know,
Yeah,
you were like, oh, he's got the purple lightning bike.
yeah.
Whatever.
I remember getting with a bunch of my friends, and we drive to neighborhoods. Sometimes we we'd even have a young girl, and she'd get on. The bike was so big, she'd be able to get on the bike with me, and we'd go for a ride. Uh, but one of the other things we used to have was used to be able to take our bikes and ride to Ebbets Field, which was oh maybe 5 miles away, and watch the Brooklyn Dodgers play. And it was great. We'd have a few dollars in our pocket, and we'd know somebody in the parking lot, and we give them $1 and say, "Watch our bikes," and we'd go into a day game if there was no school.
And
Uh,
how old were you?
11, 12.
Jesus Christ.
No, Jesus Christ never came with us. Uh, uh,
Oh
but
my God.
but but wait, but I'm going to turn this around. I As we got older, I was never allowed to go on the subway where by myself. So there were different things, but I explored neighborhoods, and that sometimes I got myself in trouble because I shouldn't be in certain neighborhoods. But again, that's the process of growing up. Some of my friends had their bikes stolen, taken away. But, you know, that's what it was. And, I used to work on the weekends. My dad worked long hours, and he was an executive. And but came the weekend, we may go to a baseball game to watch the Dodgers, or maybe go to see the Giant football game, go to the Giant Stadium, watch a Giant football game. Because we didn't have IT, we didn't go on TV and be able to watch all this stuff because it was on like a 13-inch TV and it wasn't that great,
Right.
So
Well, and again, this was 60s and 70s, so
no, that wasn't 60s and 70s for me. That was
what was it?
It was 54, 50. I was born in 44, so it had to be
Oh, that's right. Okay.
54.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
And then I learned what a book was, Peter.
And then you learned what?
What a book was, because my parents would buy me every week or every 2 weeks the Chip Hilton series of sports books or the Hardy Boy books. And I enjoyed staying in the house on a cold day, reading and, making up games, my own games, or writing. So basically, because I was an only child and there were many only children, we had the opportunity to go out and stay in when we wanted to and mingle. And you don't seem to be able to have had that opportunity. But then again, by the time you were a teenager, you were probably very, very, very well versed in computers and such.
I mean, look, there's, I don't know, because here's the thing. Again, just to re-preface this, there's a completely different aspect of living and being raised in New York versus a suburban and then farmland area. You are able to develop skills that I won't, specifically because I can't, like you being able to mingle with people in your building and people your age and being allowed to have some forms of autonomy that I couldn't dream of and I wouldn't dream of for my kids. Because if I, for example, if I lived in a farmland, I wouldn't let my 10-year-old bike on a freaking like night time going to a friend's house. I don't care if it's 10 minutes away, I'll drive it. I'm not going to have them on a road that literally is dangerous to walk on a nighttime thing where there's various animals. Now, and it's not necessarily protectiveness, it's just safety, common sense safety. But like living in New York, you could go up to the third floor and knock on your friend's door and go, hey, let's play marbles. You could do those things. So the to compare these is a difficult situation, but nonetheless, we are making the comparison. And yes, there was a level of technological ability that I had that you didn't have until your 30s or later for that. But and I'm seeing that with my little brother. I think I got my first iPod in middle school. So I was like, I want to say 12 or 13. My brother's 10 and he's had an iPad for a while. And I whatever, it was like my old iPad and then he upgraded to a better one and whatnot. And we already had an episode called iPad Kids Are a Menace and desperately talk about this problem that is arising in this society. So if you would like to listen to that one, go and listen to that one. I believe it's like episode 3 or 4. Anyways, where he's at now, in terms of his capabilities and knowing how to use an iPad. For me, I'd probably be at 17, 16, 17. Where I'm at now, obviously, is more advanced because I went to school for communications. I know how to use editing softwares. I learned more about technology in general. I enjoy technology, so I self-teach a lot with a lot of other things. So, and I enjoy learning things, so I seek out more stuff to learn about technology. So yeah, by all means, Alex is nowhere near surpassing me, but where he's at 10 is where I was at 17 and 16. So, and where I was at 13 is where you were at in your 20s and 30s or later than that, you know. But so yeah, great. I know how to use an iPad. And but like the issue I have, which is where we start to seek value in the skills. You grew up and gained a lot of social skills. Now, you also had a lot of privilege in a lot of other areas that we don't need to get super into regarding early stage capitalism and, you know, where your parents were financially, where you were financially, the fact that a dollar cost a dollar, like to spend a dollar, it was really a dollar versus a dollar back then nowadays is 10 times, 30 times more. So, you know, what you were getting for your money was worth your money. What I get now for my money is not always worth my money. And that's because of inflation and because of late stage capitalism crumbling at our fingertips.
You see,
Um,
but I didn't need money when I was younger.
no, but what I'm saying is because of where the society was economically, it allowed for security, joy, and a sense of privilege to flourish in that you and your family didn't have to stress over paying for the babysitter versus paying for dinner that night versus, you know, having to pay for various things or, you know, paying for food wasn't such a detriment that you guys couldn't get another shirt for your birthday or you couldn't get a pair of pants,
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
my dad made a good living.
Right, he did. But my additional point though is even if he was making a moderate living, in today's society, you need to make a good living to live moderately. You back then it was a moderate living to live moderately, a good living to live good, a great for great. It was equal. Nowadays, you need to make a good or great living to live a moderate life because late stage capitalism is fucking awful. But we're not going to get into, we can't, I can't be starting this.
I'll just give you an example. On a Saturday, when I lived in Brooklyn, the Carroll Theater was, oh, I would say a good 10, 12 blocks away. So we would walk a whole bunch of kids, and I would get $1 to go there. And it was 26 cents to get in, 25 cents for the ticket, $1 tax, penny tax was 26 cents. A Coke was 15 cents, popcorn was 15 cents, candy was 15 cents. So when I went, my mother would give me $1 and she would say to me, have a good time. And we'd go there at 10:30 in the morning, and there were double features, two movies, and loads of cartoons. And it would probably be from at 10 o'clock till maybe 4 o'clock. And all I was told is don't get sick. Don't stuff yourself with a lot of junk. And we'd all come back and we'd have a great deal, you know, a great deal of fun. And we'd walk home. And if it was raining, we had, you know, we didn't have cell phones. We had phones, pay phones. And for a nickel, we'd go to the payphone. And if it was raining and it was raining hard, we'd just call one of our parents. They'd pick us up if whoever wasn't working. So you know, you never had that privilege of being with a group of kids like that and being 10, 11 years old and going to a movie theater and spending all day there.
How
And,
much was the movie, by the way?
26 cents.
Okay. So, and
20,
how much was a Coke?
15.
Okay. So just for reference, I'm gonna put it at 1960.
No, it wasn't 1960. It was 1954, 55.
All right, even better. So
56.
if we were to transfer 15-cent Coke to today, that would mean from 1954, that would mean that the Coke should cost $1.50. Cokes are $5 to $3 to $5, depending on where you're getting it from. If you're buying it from a movie theater, it's probably going to be like $7 because movie theaters are ripoffs. The ticket was 25 cents, correct?
26 cents, 4% tax.
Okay. 26 cents from 1954 to 2021 is $2.65. A movie ticket today is $15 to $25, if not more, depending on where you go and where what you're seeing. For example, if I see a movie at a random normal movie theater, $15, 12 to $15. If I go to the one by the mall near me where you get a dine-in service and you sit in a big leather chair, $25 just for the ticket, and then you get overpriced food. $2.65 for a movie.
Yeah, but let me emphasize this. Today, the living wage is much higher, but if a man made $10,000 in 1954, he was considered to be doing exceptionally well. He was on the road to buying his own house. The average person maybe made $60 a week, and that was considered good.
That's because $10,000 in 54 was six figures. It was almost 102 grand.
Yeah. So
yeah.
so, if you were making $1 to $2 an hour working in a store, and you're working 40 hours a week and you're making $80, that was a lot of money in those days. But then
that's
again,
but that's here's my point. Dollar day, 40 hours a week, and that was a lot of money. We're making 15 an hour at minimum. Some places are charging.
I don't want this to become a capitalistic versus socialistic.
It doesn't have to be socialism. I'm not necessarily rooting for socialism. I'm just against this late stage capitalism that all the old people want to persist in because they profited off of it when they were in their 20s and 30s.
We're talking about what it was like to live when we were younger.
Fine. Let's backtrack then. Anyways.
Okay.
The reason it came up from the beginning was because I wanted to preface that the not only the economic society, but the society in general that you grew up in significantly impacts how and what you do. Example A being, you could go to a movie with friends for 25 cents, and that was pocket change. And it's like, that was a lot for you guys back then because a meal was only a couple dollars. It wasn't $20. $20 for you guys is for like 20, so 25 cents turned into $2, so it's times 10, so it'd be $20 is $200. 10,000 was a little more than 100,000, so it's anything you had back then is times 10 now. So understandably, but so that's what I was trying to get at before, was referencing.
I don't want to. The purpose of this podcast is not to discuss what the valuation of money is.
No. It's not to discuss the evaluation of money, but it's to bring awareness to the fact that the society you grew up in is so significantly different that it literally causes such a shift in this discussion. Because, for example, I think the way you grew up in terms of being able to socially mingle and learn and to be social, to mingle, and to learn who you are, what you want, and how you want it at such an early age is way more important than learning how to use an iPad and knowing how to use an iPad, in my opinion. I think it goes eons farther because anyone can learn how to use an iPad, but a lot of people don't know how to search in themselves and figure out what they want in life. And they live their whole lives not being able to face themselves and figure out who and what they want to be.
Well, yeah, also, my parents gave me rules. I followed them. My father was my friend, but uh, my mother was the disciplinarian, and we moved after my bar mitzvah. That's in my faith. You get bar mitzvah when you're 13. We moved to Queens, Forest Hills, New York, and we took the next step. Like I said, my dad was making a good living. We were upper middle class, and we moved to Forest Hills, and we moved into the left rack buildings. And there were 8 left rack buildings stretched over where we lived 3 blocks. And where in the other place in Brooklyn, I lived in 2 apartment houses that were attached, and the rest, the whole street, was private houses. We had 8 left rack buildings with a schoolyard across the street, because that's the way it was built. And when after school came, or the weekends came, 50, 60 kids would come down into the schoolyard, boys and girls. If we wanted to play basketball, we'd go out on the court, 3-man basketball. I mean, from ages 13 to probably out there till the time I was 20. There were so many youngsters out there playing. You lost, you waited an hour to play again, unless somebody picked you to play on their team. We had big softball games on the weekends, on the softball field. So here we went again, more socialization. And all I had to do was make sure if I was going to walk to the junior high school, which was 4 blocks away, or if I was going to walk to the high school, which was maybe 12 blocks away, to play ball or stay after school and come home. All I had was restrictions. Do your homework, come home on time, and don't lie to us about anything you're doing.
Look,
did you have that?
no, because I wasn't allowed to leave the house.
Yeah,
And that's also, again, that is also partially a result because I was raised off of helicopter parents who were the direct result of your generation, because your generation was raised in such a, not a carefree, but a I guess carefree, that it rebounded and caused the opposing force with not everyone, but a significant amount of people, causing a helicopter set of parents who, because they had no boundaries, but they were growing up in not your time, but a time where problems were starting to flourish, they became traumatized and then became helicopter parents. And so therefore, they then tried to impose those helicopter issues on us, and that started to bring about rebellion and rebel type things. And now we're at a point where those were that generation, that was the punk rock and the punk and garage music and crap like that. So yeah. In terms of that interim of like change, I think Alex's generation is wonderfully lucky because,
well, he's 10.
no, I know, but he's in a separate generation than me. He's a Gen Z.
But he can't count baseball. He can't throw a football. He doesn't know anything about sports.
That's
All he
different though, because that's because you value the physical attributes of sports. What I'm trying to get at is he still is able, he is lucky because he has we've sort of come, well, not full circle, but we're rounding a new end of this circle of you had the capacity to mingle and the ability to talk with people whenever you wanted, however you wanted, whether it was in your building, next door, in the junkyard, at the softball field, wherever. And you could develop your skills.
but you
When I was a kid, I had to set up play dates. The technology wasn't far enough along where I could go on Xbox and play Fortnite with friends and go on the phone and FaceTime and do these things. Alex is at an age where that's a thing. He can physically do that. He doesn't need to physically see his friends. Is it an issue if he never sees them physically? Yes, because I think we all need physical human interaction. But the fact that when I was in middle school, I would have to get the house phone, prop it next to my computer, and hope and pray my buddy and I could connect on the same Wizards 101 game and find each other and then play levels together. And it was really difficult because if the home phone died, I had to I couldn't do anything. Well, I would have to message him on the in-game chat, and that crap was like dial-up. So there was nothing I could do. Now, if my phone dies because of FaceTime, I can use in-game chat, and that's real-time audio that's working at high speed, and I can have good and fun interactions with my friends. And there's a community around it. So the
yeah, but
the fact that you value the fact that he doesn't know how to throw a football, that's okay. There's nothing, I don't necessarily think that that is a wrong opinion because that's your view. Some people value the sports more than video games, or um, video games more than reading, or intellect, or brains versus bronze, whatever. There's different people who value different things. I know kids whose parents valued their health over everything else, and they were very, very health oriented, and they, to this day, they know a crap load about food and what's healthy and what's not, and they're very conscious of what's in the ingredients that I don't pay attention to. But and they're physically very healthy, but they can't throw a football, and they can't play more than like checkers on a computer game. So
see, but that's a very, even if you don't know how to throw football. I remember after school when I was in junior high or in high school, going to watch our junior high or high school basketball team play. And at the high school level, well, there would be maybe 150 people in the stands. And that was a social event. I got out of the house. And,
well, but the concept of a social event has now shifted. A social event can be going online with 5 to 10 of your friends and playing video games.
that's not the same as seeing somebody. Example, I'm at the basketball game. I'm with my friends. There's a pretty girl there. I go over and I talk with her. And I find out she's a very nice person. Finds out I'm extremely handsome and a very nice person too. And I say, what's going on? And she says, well, there's a party in my basement. Okay, when we go, can I bring a few friends with me? Yeah, can you bring a few of your girlfriends? So by getting out of the house, we were able to socialize.
That happens on social media all the time. That happens. It doesn't happen at that organic rate, but that happens a million times faster through social media and through video games, because you'll be playing video games, right? You'll play video games and some guy brings his girlfriend on, and she has some fun, and then we all start playing, and then she brings a girl on because that's her friend and we've got a community, and then You start
can't,
messaging and, oh, hey, I've got a party. Bring my friends and bring your friends.
you can't kiss a computer screen.
No, but you can set up a date to then kiss the person on the other side of that screen.
Maybe, yes, but it was so much fun and such a challenge.
I look, I agree. I agree that the social aspect of it and the physicality of it is definitely um there's something about it in terms of the organicness of it. It feels very natural. And yeah, personally, there's plenty of times where when I've made a new friend in person, it feels completely different and arguably more valuable than when I make a new friend on social media.
Yeah, but
Uh,
we used to go, it's forgetting about high school or junior high school dances. I mean, in junior high school, the guys were still shy, stay in the corner. But we'd still go, a girl had a private house, our parents would be upstairs. We'd have 3 or 4 boys, 3 or 4 girls. We'd put on 45 disc players. You don't know what that is, do you?
I do know what those are. That's record players. I know.
Yes. And we dance. It was socialization. It was something, that was wonderful. So when I became older, I knew how to dance.
Well, and look, the those skills again can be learned. And the fact that people don't know how to throw a football or don't know how to dance or don't know how to socialize, some of them are an issue. I think the fact that people don't know how to socialize is an issue. um, Simultaneously, people are uncomfortable socializing, and I think we have allowed room for people to go with their own pace rather than shaming them into doing it and causing trauma. um, so yeah, again, I will hark back to what I said, which is there's something about the physicality and how organic it feels to do things in person. And I think we can all respect that after this pandemic. And we all realize that after this pandemic, because, you know, Lord knows I'm fucking so happy that I can see people again. Sucks that I have to do it in a mask. I have to go to class in a mask. And by all means, 100% for the mask. Will wear the mask, will not complain about it in the sense of like when I'm in class. But yeah, it'd be nice to not have to worry about a mask. At the same time, though, probably gonna forever wear a mask around wintertime because I know for a fact that crap is helping with flu season and head colds. Um, but yeah, I think there's greats to both sides because I think yes, being able to physically go to a game and see a girl and like, oh my God, should I go up to her and talk to her? Those are things that we don't experience a ton anymore. And that most of that has been sort of condensed into bar culture or party culture. Most of the time, people are not, what?
Not when you're 13, 14, 15, 16, and
No,
17.
I'm talking. No, yeah, it's still bar and party culture in today's society because you're going to a house party where there's probably alcohol at 14. And yes, there is because when I was in high school, I knew plenty of my friends who were drinking at 14 and 15.
Out of my day, though.
Well, I'm saying in your day, you guys would just have dance parties. In our today's society, America is very much sold generations on party culture and drinking and drugs, and there's very little like whatever, like common parties. Even if there's a gaming party where it's a bunch of friends, there's probably still going to be something there. Not all, but probably. So yeah, it's
See, but
you know, I think there's a lot of stuff that we're not talking about that on both sides that are really, really bad and really, really good, and also are the causations. But with what we've spoken about, yes, I think there's a level of humanity that we are missing with technology. At the same time, that technology is giving us our humanity and our autonomy back because we can now choose who our friends are, and we can now be comfortable with who we are, and we're not forced or shamed into being with a group, a category, or a brand that we no longer identify with. So the technology both separates and brings us together in confusing and difficult ways. And I think the key to it is balance, balancing your use of technology, because I think technology is a beautiful thing. It has brought wonderful marriages through dating apps and through social media.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
technology and art has flourished through social media and through digital media in general. Simultaneously, an excess use of it causes issues. People who are on 4 different dating apps and swiping through 100 people a day, problem. People, because they're devaluing humans to simply a yes, no, and they're not recognizing that these are souls and these are people with actual things in their lives. Party culture, people only going to parties to hook up and have sex with people.
Let
Uh,
me let me ask you an honest question.
go ahead.
Would you have preferred? Well, now you're a social person. You don't have social problems,
Used
but
to worked my way out of that, but yes, I am quite a social person now.
you did when you were younger a bit. Um, uh, I I didn't, but would you have rather have had the opportunity to be able to walk to your junior high, walk to your high school, take part in events after school, walk home with a bunch of friends, uh, do all the activities I described, also on an occasional poker game? Got to throw that in. We had great poker games because we always had a bunch of guys. And have these relationships growing up rather than doing this all online. Which would you have preferred, or a mix?
Uh, I'd I'd say a mix, because I and I would argue I had a mix. I'd say, if you're saying a further mix from what I had, because I, growing up, didn't have tons of technology and stuff like that until sort of late middle school, and then onto high school. So the first decade or so of my life was very much present and in this moment. Um, so versus someone like my brother, who iPad kid from birth. Um, and that is a significant difference that I disagree with. So if you're saying having the ability to go places with friends, personally, knowing how I grew up and knowing my personality, I'm happy with how I grew up, because I'm aware that when I was growing up, I was a very anxious kid, and I needed the time alone that I did to find the confidence in who I was and be aware of what I wanted. Because if I would have gone out, I don't believe if I would have gone out in the sense of like going to these games and these things, they weren't things I was interested in, but I would have gone because I wanted companionship, and I would have overvalued companionship over self-identification. So
I don't understand that, because uh, you, from your self-identification, you can seek companionship with people that you feel are compatible to yourself.
right, but if you are at a young age and you can't determine what you are simply going with the people who bring good feelings to you, and thus you are not finding who's compatible with you. You are simply just being a fluid thing that's compatible for them. They're not compatible with you because you don't know what you want yet. Arguably, because unless the question is, would I rather grow up in your time versus my time? Because in your time, you had such freedoms and abilities that you could figure out what you wanted. But if you're saying have some of the freedoms that you had in my time, that's a more difficult situation, because I don't have the extent of the freedoms that you had. It will hinder my ability to figure out who and what I want. My ability to figure out who and what I want took until my 20s because of the way I grew up and the way that society has sort of shaped me. I did not have the freedom and the capacity to choose and explore until I hit college. Because of that, I didn't get to figure out who and what I wanted to be.
Yeah, that's where we get to our one of our podcasts, living in my basement at 23, and I was married when I was 23. Yeah,
Yes, that's how we get up to that real time of being 23.
build, building up, to our youth to there. I think going away to college is one of the best things that can happen to an individual.
I agree 1000%.
Yeah, because you get to learn again to live in a community like I did.
I agree 1000%. And that's where we can finish off is like, as someone who had a choice to either get a car and commute or no car but stay at college, staying at college was the best thing I could have ever done. Ever. It gave me a level of freedom and responsibility that wasn't full on from nothing to something. It was enough to allow me to be responsible for who I am without the concern of certain things like daily bills or a daily job, because I was very privileged and didn't have to work while living at college. And it gave me the freedom to explore and choose and do what I want. And it really helped me develop who and what I am. Versus friends who I know who had to commute 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes. And they are missing out on significant things and they feel bad. And they're like, and some of them I watched, they commute for a year and then they decided to move in and they're enjoying their life so much better. So yeah, 100%. I think living at college, whatever college it is, living at college, million times better.
Well, that I love you, your sister Alex, and your mother very much. And they would laugh. My son would say, and your mother would say that I'm a worrier. So that worry stems from me being out and growing up with the social freedom, seeing what is out there. So I am a worrier, and I'm always told, why do you have to worry about this? Stop worrying so much. Stop worrying so much. So I'm not one of these people say to you or to or to your mother, oh, go out, do that, have fun, don't worry about anything. I am always, watch out for this, watch out for that, when you don't go on the subway, blah, 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 so I've come full circle from being a very freedom-minded kid to being a very worrisome Deepaw,
Yes.
So, but I guess that's because I love my family very much. So that's.
Oh, of course, we want to protect the things we love.
So anyway.
All right, so we'll come back with another one. The next one will be, I don't know. We'll actually probably be pretty close to Thanksgiving at this point. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do like a special holiday themed one. If not, it'll definitely be. We're gonna figure something out. I think I want to do something holiday related because I do love post Halloween on is always a fun time because I like all the festivities and the holidays and the things that go on. So
we could do something of you eating my fabulous standing rib roast.
Yes, that's what we'll do. I will. That's what we'll do. I'll do a food review.
A food review. That's right. So, I'm breaking your mother in where she can make it herself, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Until the next one. This has been the podcast. Thank you for listening. Those who I don't know where you're listening from. If it's on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're on Spotify, feel free to answer those polls or those questions, whichever ones I throw on there. If you're on Apple Music, rate us 5 stars and make sure to share us to your friends and family because hell yeah, we want more listeners and we want to participate. And also, if you have anything, comment it. If you're on YouTube specifically, comment what you want. If there's anything you want us to talk about, by all means.
Yeah, tell us about your younger years in response to our discussion.
Yes, by all means.
Okay.
So, all right. Until the next one.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Okay.